Man, it's great to have you on our podcast. So, let's just dive right into it. You are known as a human rights activist. When this tyranny began a few years back, you were very active and very vocal. So, take us through that journey, Tim, of who you are, what you've been up to, and what the last 3 years has looked like for you.
Well, the last 3 years it's been an Orwellian nightmare of dealing with the psyop and how it unfolds in the day to day and how people absorb it and then subject their fellow Americans to how they interpret tyranny.
Hmm.
Uh, so I mean, I lost work, I've lost employment over the masks and the vaccines and stuff. It's I've lost you know time with my children over my ex's fears over the bioweapon. Thinking that I was the asymptomatic carrier and stuff like that. So it's hit home. But the I was kind of I was already an activist as it already was when the bioweapon hit. So I was already in the streets of Seattle. I was already getting Antifa to riot and stuff like that. So it felt like I had to switch gears. I was no longer going to focus on Antifa and their hijinks and stuff like that. I was going to focus on what was really important. So just became like this, small little protest at the Gates Foundation. And as the news hit and as we started to learn more and more, it was clear that I had to be at the Gates Foundation, and it was almost as if they had to hear what we knew, so that there was no possible way for any one of them to have a victory lap, and they have it. The Gates Foundation did not get the victory lap that they thought they would. It hasn't
Ex-
happened.
Explain that to me. What do you mean by that they didn't have the victory lap that they've been wanting to get?
Well, I mean, sure, they're accomplishing their goals, but they thought that they would get away with it without any type of protest or without any type of opposition. And so I'm literally in their driveway. I mean, I would park my car in the driveway, take the keys out, and put bullhorns out the side of the windows. They didn't anticipate that. They didn't anticipate that energy, a lot of people's energy coming through. And I'm just trying to show people examples on how easy it is to troll and be politically active and be effective in this. I mean, we are effective in stirring the pot and building culture and showing people how to stand on their own feet and how it's cost effective. But so they didn't get the victory lap because we were there from day one. They thought that they'd be able to pull a global depopulation thing, but there hasn't been that many protests. So I anticipated that they thought that it would be light and not, but we've maintained a sustained presence there.
So you like literally park your car out in front of the Bill Gates Foundation with a
In the
bullhorn and you blast the truth?
two of them, two of them. I mean, before they stopped me, I can't do it anymore. But I'd pull in. I used to do like laps around the Gates
Mhm.
Foundation, either in the turn lane, and then if I was forced into the driveway, I would just sit there until somebody turned out of the Gates Foundation. And really, on a Saturday, nobody would. So all the passerbys that went to the Seattle Center, which is a huge tourist trap, not only them, but the employees, the security people, the closed circuit cameras, they all got to see what was going on. They all got to hear it.
Hmm.
And when I'm not playing the truth, I'm normally just going to read the Nuremberg Code so that they
Hmm.
understand what it means.
Wow, wow. So I mean, what makes you so bold? It sounds very bold for somebody to go out there with a bullhorn, drive around the Bill Gates Foundation. A lot of people won't have the courage to do something like that. What makes you so bold? What was the motivating factor for you to take these steps?
Uh, well, the motivating factor, geez. Well, one, it's wrong. I mean, to let this happen and not say anything, just absolutely wrong on its face. As Americans, it's just in my blood, I guess. But I don't really think it's courageous to do what I'm doing. I think it's a necessity. I don't find myself, because there's a lot of things I have fear about, and so I mean, I show courage by showing up and please don't depopulate us. It's not
Hmm.
being courageous. That's just being like in the here and now as an American citizen with free speech. I'm not trying to be violent or cause problems. I'm literally just trying to inform the people around them the people that are working for the Gates Foundation that don't quite have the understanding, or maybe they're compartmentalized to where it just doesn't seem like what it actually is until they actually get that one puzzle piece that sits in there and go, oh gosh, this is really bad.
Hmm.
So that's the type. I mean, I don't really think it's courageous, but I mean, if it is, I mean, my whole life has prepped me for this, and I think that a lot of people in the arena, their whole lives have prepped them for this type of situation. You know,
I
for
mean, that
business.
resonates definitely with me that your whole life has prepped you for this. Tell me a little bit about that. What was in your life that prepped you for this moment?
Well, from the very get go, the I could kind of see the writing on the wall that things weren't right, but I had a very good understanding on how things were wrong as well. You know, and I wanted, living in Seattle, like we're if you don't understand marketing and public relations, then you're just not paying attention because that's how the city was before 9/11. It was all about marketing and public relations. And so the culture in Seattle was a happy-go-lucky place. You know, people like to party, they like to go to the ball games, they like to have fun, but there wasn't this death cult energy that
Hmm.
then all of a sudden it showed up. And my friends and associates, they welded themselves to that death cult energy like Trump welded himself to warp speed. It was just like,
Hmm.
oh my gosh. And so I walked away from most of it and I was just put on my own path. And for like the last 20 years or so, just analyzing how people behave. And then when I found out about it, kind of grew a disdain, like looking at how apathetic the culture became, like almost overnight. And I didn't quite see it, but then once I did see it, it's like something you can't unsee.
Hmm.
But then when I found out about the fluoride being in the water, that was the biggest turning point in my existence as far as because I really kind of want to, be friends with a lot of people. I'm just a social person. But then there's this disconnect that I couldn't quite explain. Well, I'm from Portland,
Hmm.
Oregon, and we are not fluoridated. I did not grow up with fluoride in my water. So there's this spiritual energy, this, I don't know, mental cognition that I don't know. There's a difference. There's just a difference. I'm just saying there is. You can debate me all you want. But once I found out that the fact that Seattle had been brain damaged, I just I wanted to do something about it. And in the process to me learning about the fluoride, I found Alex Jones. And the whole Alex Jones thing was just kind of like this. He was almost the Andy Kaufman on the internet, almost instantaneous. How I saw him in my eyes it was like this guy was just this firebrand, and he understood him how to use a certain type of energy. It was at his disposal, and he knew how to drive in these points. And I thought it was just like pure sensationalism at first, but I could see his radio shtick almost immediately. That's what I thought it was. So I started taking notes because a lot of things he was talking about was serious. And I'm like, well, that can't be true. That can't be true. And so, in all these notes, I came across this idea of writing a book, and I was going to debunk Alex Jones. Basically, what I was going to do. Going
Hmm.
to a real quick book. And so I go out into the streets, and I had some time on my hands, and I started doing this research because human rights is really crucial. I mean, I didn't take a job with banks. I didn't take a job with the military. I worked at a grocery store because that was the most benign level of society I could find myself in, where I could make money, I could pay my bills, but I don't have to step on the neck of others, right? There's no
Hmm.
manipulation, right? It's just pure labor, pure customer service and exchange, transactional. But nobody's there to have conflict. Or are they? Because I was just feeding the population poison. I was just making sure that they had their poisons available.
Hmm.
And so the human rights aspect of informed consent, because nobody really understands that fluoride's in the water and it causes brain damage. And that really hit home for me, because my atomic veteran grandfather, who, he'd been a loyal patriot all his life. He served his church. He was a Shriner. He knew some things that nobody really will probably get the chance to find out. But he was also really big on not fluoridating. And he told me about some of the aspects of concentration camps in Nazi Germany and stuff like that. And I started thinking about, like, Well, what would make prisoners stand in a line naked in a building with no back door? I mean, all they can hear is screams. Now, what would do that to the human spirit? How could you crush them so much that they won't get out of line? Because guns aren't going to scare people at a certain point. It's just like, hey, you can shoot me. You're going to kill me anyway. So the guns, the dogs, that doesn't really scare humans at a certain point. At least I would think. But what if it was the fluoride, right? And so you do the research and you find out that Hitler was hitting most of Nazi Germany with like 1 part per 600,000, and we get 1.4 to 1.7 parts per million, right? So they got a cleaner dose, but it was still just look what it did, right? It allowed monsters to rise to power. And
Question about there, because I don't know the history of fluoride as well as you might know it. So, was fluoride put in our water prior to the Third Reich, or was that after the Third Reich?
now that's a very good question, because I've heard 3 different stories that 1913 or 1918 it was put in, or 1921 by some guy in Michigan. I heard it was put in the water because there was so much spillage from the Manhattan Project that it had leached into the ground table, the water table, in certain areas, that it was just killing livestock. So they concocted some sort of psyop plan to say that it was great for you. The the origin story behind it kind of muddies the waters, because then we start arguing about whose facts are right. What it actually does is it causes brain damage, neurological damage, everything. It's the toxic waste that people are constantly consuming. They're constantly bombarded with it, and that's what causes that fight or flight response to go away. You no longer see, caring for yourself is just as much as a biological process as breathing, right? Preserving your existence. And if they take that away from you chemically, they've brought, that's just so fucking monstrous. Excuse my language, but that's just monstrous. So I started connecting dots, and I started to realize that the Seattle freeze, which everybody calls it here, is the fluoride stare. And I got into a little bit more research. After with the debunking Alex Jones thing, that was impossible, because my notes just became true. I just went down a laundry list of things that he had claimed, like everything from 9/11 to the chemtrails to the fluoride to the GMOs, all the things that were violations of informed consent, and they were all true, every single one of them. And
the point here is that, even fluoride being in our water, we should have informed consent, because we're basically being medicated. It's causing brain damage. So, I mean, we should be able to know that, hey, if you drink this water, you're going to get brain damage.
Well, not only that, the fluoride's one aspect of the delivery, but it's so caustic. It's taking the pipe with you, or with it, and delivering it to you. And the element it's chemically structured to where it's more toxic as you heat it. So warm water is more toxic, hot water, boiling water, it burns into all things, and so it's really hard to get it off of your food, because it's caustic, So what's there, it's there. I mean, there's ways to get it out, but yeah, it also it deposits in the bones, and then as you get older, it releases when the bones soften, so you get double dose, just like with lead or all heavy metals. But the fluoride's like the big, you open up the door and there's just you go from normal America and you figure out what's going, like something's wrong here. You look at the fluoride thing and it's like this door. You open it up and there's just nothing but a concentration camp ran by eugenicists.
Yeah. I mean, the crazy thing is, sometimes, we'll talk about ideas on this show, right? And to me, they're very simple ideas. Maybe I didn't grow up with the abundance of fluoride that some people did, but I constantly realize that there's individuals that could not comprehend very simple ideas. Are you saying that's because of the fluoride and the damage that does to your brain?
I would say so, yes. What else would it be? We're the state-of-the-art creatures. I mean, I see raccoons smarter than humans. I mean, I'm just like, what's going on here?
Yeah.
So, again with the thought exercise, because when I found out about the fluoride, and I just became this human rights activist, which is, we'd go around the streets and hand out flyers and have conversations with people, but like, hey, did you know this and this and that? And we tried to meet with the mayor, but the mayor wouldn't meet with us. We tried to get with the city council; they wouldn't meet with us. So it's basically like it's very, very hush hush, and it has to happen, right? The fluoride in Seattle is deliberate. They know what it's doing, and the AMA says it's fine and stuff like that. But if you go to an MSDS website and you just look up MS, I think it's Fisher.com MSDS, and you look up sodium fluoride, it says fatal if ingested. I mean, it's basically like what you're seeing with the COVID shot they've been doing for decades with fluoride, but in just smaller ways and just enough to get away with it. And then they will legalize it. But yet it's still like, look what it does. Look where we're at, where nobody is caring about the overall democide, right? They're able to kill us off in mass numbers now because there's no ability to perceive that, fight or flight response. So I would say it's a very big element. Yes, and 77% of the United States is fluoridated. You don't know how much you get per day. What else is there?
I mean, question about that topic in terms of the water. I've been told there's certain purification systems, because we like to give solutions to people that are concerned about fluoride. And by the way, it's not just fluoride in our water. After doing multiple interviews with doctors, there's all kinds of pharmaceuticals, estrogen. A lot of doctors think that the feminization of men is due to what we're drinking in the water, right? Yep. What is the solution there? Could you clean this water? Is there a way to get the fluoride out of this water?
From what I found out in my research, that reverse osmosis is the best way to go. Gravity filters are, if you can't afford a big system, start with gravity filters. They're pretty reasonable as far as the investment in your health. One medical bill going to somebody, because we don't know what a few glasses of toxic waste will do to somebody anymore. But there's a few brands. There's Berkey. There's the Alexa Pure, which Alex Jones sells. I've gotten 3 of those units in my past. They work fine. Those filters work amazing. The water's good. People say that you can distill it out, which I don't think you can. But but I've never had reverse osmosis been disputed, or the gravity filters been disputed. So there's that. They have shower filters now. But also, if you're trying to find like information on, like, if your products are at the supermarket prepared with water, they all are usually. You can look on the label. Like, most bottled waters are available. They have a water quality report that you can go on and you can do the research for yourself. Like, Fiji water has 2 parts per million of fluoride, the square bottles. So they publish this information, but as far as like what it does to you, that's where the violation of informed consent is, because they know what it does and they lie to you.
Wow.
Right. And so with the shots and Gates Foundation, I was already pretty much primed for that. That's my mindset. And that was for 10 years. And I had twins during my awakening, my red pill digestion, because, part of the whole challenge of being alive in this arena is actually, having children and then teaching them the ways of good, just teaching, they're as best I can. My children are very, I don't have custody of them anymore because of the way that the courts are and the way that they used Alex Jones' kids being courts. But the exposure that I've had to my children was beneficial. So my son's very aware of like the chemtrails and stuff like that. They're very aware of how the system is, just because they've listened to enough Alex Jones in the background. It's pretty amazing. So the I don't know. It's the one thing that you can always, there's always a solution, and they don't want you to think there is a solution. They don't want you to think that you can't climb your way out of this hole. And there is. It's very expensive in some aspects. They make it very hard for you, but just taking that time to figure out what was going on, and then having the vaccine rollout come out, and you're just like, oh my God, they're going to do this to everybody, and they did. You know, they literally did it to everybody. My kids are not vaccinated. They're totally aware of it. My ex is she's an anti-vax, but thank God. But they were so worried about their classmates, you know, their teachers. And then for I think it was about a year solid, that's all we heard was fire engines and aid cars. And see, I don't know about your area, but that's what we heard after they finally got the vaxes in their arms and the first booster. Then the aid cars started to really, really start. And we heard it for a good year, you know. And
you're talking about people having reactions and stuff. That's what those ambulances and were.
It has to be. I mean, there's no reason for dropping dead at the same time as the boosters are rolling out. It's just yeah. I mean, we tried to stop them in Seattle by doing chalk walks. We did neighborhood outreaches. We did protests.
What's a chalk walk, by the way?
Oh, a chalk walk's pretty easy to describe. It's you take sidewalk chalk and you just write facts about what they don't know on the sidewalk or any, you know, writable surface. You know, it's not really graffiti because it's washed off with water, so you can't be prosecuted, at least in this area. So we were doing as many outreach things. We did lots of marches. We did like maybe 15 marches in the area. Banner hangs over the freeway, you know, and plus my stuff at the Gates Foundation. They just didn't get the victory lap here in Seattle that they anticipated, you know, and which was kind of encouraging and discouraging at the same time, because I didn't really see the rest of the country kind of take that energy and protest where they were. Maybe it's because they didn't think that they had the right outlet, like, because I did drive the short stick by having the Gates Foundation at my city, so I live here. But now with the lockdown too, you know, hopefully, I mean, this is what's strange. Okay, so I'm a Proud Boy, right? Seattle Proud Boy, right? Million MAGA March. That is a hashtag that I put on Jack Posovic's Twitter, and they used it. That was theirs, or mine. And so, and then, like with all the protests and stuff, it just really defeats the narrative, like of like the right wing domestic extremist. I mean, I was a homeless fucking father. Excuse my language, but I was a homeless father protesting the Gates Foundation. You know, trying to stop, you know, massive human rights violations, and they were calling my fellow patriots right-wing domestic extremists. You know, so while they're saying that we are right-wing domestic extremists, I've held almost 150 consecutive events with 0 arrests, with 0 police, 0 violence, nothing. There's just been nothing here, and this is in the heart of Seattle. We've kept it so mellow and all about the facts, and it just doesn't hold up, and it won't hold up in court. If they want me to testify in front of a grand jury about anything, that's fine. I can, because the narrative goes away as soon as they analyze my track record alone. You know, as far as being all the things, because I'm an avid listener of InfoWars. I call in probably twice a month, maybe not 3 times. I've been on the show a few different times. I'm a Proud Boy. I'm a patriot. I voted for Ron Paul, right? I voted for Trump twice. And yet, where is all the violence and terrorism that they say? You know, other than my bullhorns, which is fine. But, you know, you won't come to me to have the conversation. So I get to project sound towards you so that you can hear the truth. Because I think what's going on in this, and my analyzation of how people aren't getting the narrative, or only getting the narrative, is just that it's kind of like the same thing with AI. And I think it's a machine learning process where they have most of the patriots in kind of like these consolidated spaces digitally. Like we can't kind of get out, right? Well, what if that same arena has been built for the left too, where they're not able to get out either? And it makes sense. I mean, would you make half a prison or would you make a full prison?
Yeah.
And so we have to figure out ways in order to get the message to the normies that are coming from bleeding out from the Democrat Party into the RFK, you know, from RFK, Um, because lockdown 2 is going to suck. That I don't think it'll ever go away. I mean, once they put the mask back on their face, why take it off? And, if you notice, which was really scary, like the scariest thing about the entire lockdowns and everything that was the day that they were told to take the mask off. Right? They did it. Now think about that. It wasn't like because you know, they were not scared of the bioweapon anymore. They did it out of compliance, just as much as they put it on in compliance. And so that's the type of American that they've chemically created, right? Through fluoride, through GMOs, through the PSYOP, which is the digital transformation of the mental, the mind. It's they're rewiring our brains per se with neuron synapses and stuff like that. So we only can think in one direct way. We're triggered to respond in like circus seals.
Wow.
Basically the same thing. So we're doing our best, because it's either that or they want us to have some sort of like venting civil war to give them excuse for UN troops, for foreign soldiers to come in, where we lose that, because the one thing that we have, which the American patriot has when no other, is like this steadfast resolve to not flinch. We haven't flinched at all. There have been so many provocations and so many like, come on, you want your civil war? I know you want your civil war, and all we want is peace. All we want is just a resolvance of our grievances. We don't want to be democide, and we want informed consent. What's so wrong with that? We want you to leave the kids alone, and that goes with all drugs. It goes with from everything from your wretched tap water to the vaccine schedule to the everything. The plastics that your children play with are leaching in through their skin purposefully. They design these toys and they say it's for profit. Bull. They want these low grade plastics to be absorbed so they can transform. And it's like, who was the first trans? It was Baphomet, right? So it's their god. They want to just kind of ritually sacrifice and transform every American as best they can into this androgynous.
Their god.
Well, I would.
I don't know that.
I mean, the Luciferian deity, isn't it Baphomet or the goat of Mendez, where it's part man, part goat? It's a chimera, right? Where they're splicing GMOs into us, right? But they also have to make us a male and a female at the same time. So now that's what the endocrine disruptors are doing, So I just want my country to not be a concentration camp, right? And when you see how many ways that they've developed these vectors into our food supply, into our daily lives, how is it not a concentration camp, right? I mean, I'm it's so. What do we do other than bullhorn the F out of these people until their voices are no longer relevant, until our culture is now the one that sways people's minds and decisions? It's about winning hearts and minds so they don't end up going home with poisons on their table and then going to big pharma, which is controlled by Gates. Downstream is where we're trying to have our victory laps.
Yeah. So let's talk about Bill Gates real quick. I mean, Bill Gates, somebody who many people claim is tremendously evil, that is a eugenicist, that wants to, from his own words, he wants to get rid of 90% of the world's population. I mean, what happened with Bill Gates? How did this individual, I mean, he went from being a software engineer. That's funny, I was watching a documentary about Steve Jobs the other day, and seems as though Steve Jobs and Bill Gates were instrumental in creating this new future that we have. And both of them look like techie nerds. Who would have thought that this guy, Bill Gates, would then want to essentially commit the greatest genocide in the history of humankind? I mean, what's going on there, do you think?
I think there's a lot of child ritual abuse that has to happen in order for these people to actually, get into the echelons. And I think that they have to offer their first or second born as many children as the cult requires in order for the power structure to exist. And so when you see monsters like Gates running around Africa, right, with
Mhm.
no remorse. I mean, what they like Africa is a test model to what they want to do in America and what they are doing in America. Africa is what they're doing in India. You know, what can cause a human being to have that much death in their eyes and lust for it? It has to start at childhood, or it's just like this epigenetic memory that it allows some sort of energy possession or demon possession to just take hold of these people. They're like cups that somebody pours a demon juice into somehow, some way, and then just sitting there doing what they do. Because there's no excuse for his behavior. There's no excuse for the vaccine damage. There's no excuse for the mosquitoes or the GMOs or the Common Core or any of the
Mhm.
stuff that Bill Gates wants to have happen. There's no excuse for that guy to have a cent to his name, considering his affiliations with Epstein, right? But that's why we know that he's in power, is because he's affiliated with Epstein. It's kind of weird how that works, like how our
Mhm.
compass works versus how their compass works, and
I
it's
mean, for the viewers that don't know, it seems like if you've done certain horrible things like raping children, having sex with underage minors, then they have the dirt on you, and then hence and therefore you're able to be catapulted into the public spotlight. Because if you were to ever misbehave and go against their agenda, they'll pull out those pictures of you screwing an
yep,
underage child. I mean, that seems to be the shtick.
yeah, that it seems to be the shtick that keeps him. That is the glue that binds them, is this demonic, blackmail.
Hmm.
Um, I don't really know if people like that can, because I've been faced with this question. Is Bill Gates? Can he repent? Can he become a Christian? Can we forgive him? Right? If he openly repents, can we forgive him? Um, I don't think we're. I don't think we're biologically capable of forgiving such crimes. And it's almost like the point where you have to drive yourself that much more insane to even fathom the thought that those actions are tolerable, right?
Yeah.
And so,
I mean, that's a that would be a mighty Christian point of view to. I mean, could we forgive Adolf Hitler's?
yeah,
Could we
no,
forgive Joseph Stalin's?
no, we don't have to. That's the point. We've there's a hierarchy to this, and once you've gone past that point of darkness where we can't comprehend, we shouldn't have to comprehend forgiveness either. And so I advocate for a due process. We have all the research, we have all the documents. Enjoy defending yourself in a court of law, Bill, because
Mhm.
I mean, if in order for society, in order for this planet to have any kind of future other
Mhm.
than a straight gulag, rule of law has to come back.
Yeah.
We have to have a, a fail-safe system that keeps Genesis from building their power again, or it will
Yeah.
happen
Yeah.
again. So a generational message needs to be sent, and
Yeah.
it
Could I throw a little wrench
sure,
in this idea? I mean, what you're saying sounds great, but our courts are. I mean, there's no such thing as courts.
I know,
I mean, to say that we have a judicial industry would be a fallacy because these aren't courts right now. They could care less about the Constitution. These judges are stinking corrupt. A lot of them are cowards. A lot of them do not rule according to the Constitution. They give a rat's ass about the Constitution.
I know.
Now, when you dissect that issue, why is it like that, right? Read a book called Fruits from a Poisonous Tree. The entire legal industry was set up according to the bar, which is an unlawful monopoly, which means that there's nobody overseeing the bar, which means essentially that when you go to the courts, you're basically asking for the criminals to handcuff themselves, which is never going to happen. Right? These
Right.
judges are controlled. How do you deal with that issue? By the way, I know the answer to this. I got an idea, but I'm asking you, how do you deal with the issue of you could go the courts with all the evidence in the world? By the way, we just interviewed 9/11 whistleblowers. They've showed up to court with all the evidence in the world
They showed
that
up alone.
and they showed the evidence that there was, I believe, thermite or some kind of melting device, that yes, the towers were actually pre fitted with bombing mechanisms so they could collapse like a nice controlled demolition. But the courts keep ignoring it. And guess what they say? They come out with the same sort of things like in the election fraud lawsuits where there's no standing, no standing. Do they ever look at the evidence? No, they just tell you that there's no standing. So for somebody like me that's done, hundreds of interviews talking about the court issues, talking about the corruption of the bar society, I just don't see a method through the traditional methods of having these criminals brought to justice through our U.S. corporate legal system.
Yeah, that is a big problem, and it's a bottleneck of how we're going to get past this. Is like the courts hold us all, and we really don't have any way out of it other than numbers. And I'm not advocating for anything at all, but a group of people will eventually have to be like just there, And I don't really think like they'd have the support they think they have, because I mean, other than just the sheer force of numbers shifting culture away from the last 1,000 years, how are we going to? Because the slave mentality, is it epigenetic, right? Are we always going to be slaves? Or is there a breaking point where we're no longer slaves, but we're not barbarians either, and we don't have to storm the gates, but we literally just have to show up? There has to be that beautiful gray area, and I think that's the only way out of it, is discovering that beautiful gray area where it's a peaceful discussion. And that's why they always bring in the false flags and the camo gear and stuff like that. I mean, the Second Amendment's great and all. It's not really necessary domestically yet. We don't have to. I mean, I don't go armed to win hearts and minds, and I definitely don't go. I just go with knowing that the truth is all I need. But if everybody showed up to the courthouse demanding, if that's what's necessary, but past that, I don't really know. I mean, Tom Bren seems to have a better chance of doing anything, of establishing some sort of legal precedent where the Supreme Court has to work. But if they don't work, then what do we do? Do we rally for a champion like a president? So if the president doesn't have a population behind him that's fractured and full of infighting and toxic, he's not going to have any support when he needs us the most, when they come after him for trying to flip over the table. So there has to be a lot more interaction on our part in order for the legal dilemma to go away, because a lot of people are just acting as if, and we're just slaves. We're literally just slaves. So
I want to throw an idea here real quick. I've been looking at my monitor over here, as I'm sure the viewer could notice. I've been glancing over here. The reason I pulled up some episodes, and one of the ideas I wanted to throw out there, because we're all about solutions on our Blood Money podcast and at America Happens. So there's something called common law courts, right? That individuals like you and I, Tim, could actually set up. Okay. Because what they don't tell you is that courts, you don't need to be a special person to set up courts. You need people to set up courts. And you could actually set up constitutional common law courts through we the people. And the reason I mention this is we've done a couple of episodes with a lady by the name of Catherine Hine, who was a 4 decades long bar agent, right? AKA an attorney. We call them bar agents on this show because that's what they are. When you have essentially an unlawful monopoly controlling our entire government, which is what's happening with the bar. They control the legislature, they control the judicial branch. Hence and therefore, there's no checks and balances. Hence and therefore, we are in this quagmire right now. Like, we are not going to get out of this when there's no checks and balances, right? Because the legislature was never supposed to be filled with lawyers swearing an oath to the bar versus swearing an oath to the Constitution. But that's exactly what's happened, right? Now, the founders were very clever because they gave us the avenues to set up our own courts with judgments that come through these courts that are actually enforceable, because once you have a common law court, the sheriffs, the authorities actually have to enforce that judgment, right? And I reference Blood Money episode here. I'm going to pull this up real quick. Episode 57 and also Blood Money episode 105, right? Very important viewing because literally Catherine Hine, who's this former bar attorney, breaks down of how we could set up our own common law courts. And the biggest message here is these idea of parallel systems. We don't have to get violent. We don't have to go shoot judges. We don't have to go shoot politicians. We don't even have to move a finger and get upset, right? A lot of people sit there and they're keyboard warriors and, they're talking about civil war and all this stuff. No, we set up our own courts. That's it. It's as simple as that. And the prototype to that is in these episodes with Catherine Hine. So I just encourage a viewer to check out the information on there. I always tell viewers that there's work involved. There's work involved. This is not something where if you're a keyboard warrior at home, like, oh, you're upset, Joe Biden sucks, the judges suck. I mean, useless. You might as well like literally do nothing and play on your PlayStation. This stuff takes education. This stuff takes action. So anyway, the long and short of this rant is please check out these episodes because it literally gives you the prototype of how to circumvent these courts and actually get judgments that are enforceable and frankly that are based upon the Constitution and not their nonsense statutory laws.
Oh, yeah, sounds good. I mean, if we were able to do that where the sheriffs had a lot more stability with people behind them, then yeah, absolutely. I mean, they are the beachhead. I mean, as far as the last ones to say whether or not the feds can do anything. I think in King County, the sheriffs are now selected by city council, though, or King County Council. Yeah, they removed our ability to elect one. And so we'll have to. There's a lot of work to do, and because they know that too, so they've been working on getting. And now it's a selection process. So definitely, there's a lot of things to do in Seattle. There's a lot of people. There's a ton of work to do, and there's like when you go to Infowars and you watch, and you watch one of the live streams, there's 10,000 people on the Rumble chat. 10,000 people. Imagine if they were doing something.
Yeah,
right? Just anything. I mean, just doing is something. It would be so much better off, and you can't take that energy back if you don't do anything with it. But it lasts forever if you do something with it. I mean, that's what I've come to find out. Is so long as I keep, just hacking away at this slave narrative, like, well, I can't do it. It's so scary. Well, what about the feds? Aren't they going to arrest you? Oh, it's too expensive to do all this. Well, aren't you afraid of Bill Gates? No, there's none of that is necessary. And the moment that you're fearless. I mean, that's the moment America. We're going to come back is if we can get that. So I don't know. I mean, as far as getting people there.
Yeah. What's very inspiring, I mean, the thing that I heard you say was that you were a homeless father going up against Bill Gates. I mean, talk about a David versus Goliath story right there. And you don't seem to be flinching at all by having traveled this journey. I mean, tell me, how did you become homeless? How were you as a homeless father fighting Bill Gates? What's the story behind that?
Well, I became homeless because of I got catfished. Okay, just be flat out honest. I was catfished, and then my kids are very wonderful children. They're twins, boy-girl twins. They're very special. They're unvaccinated. But for my ex, it's a child support check, and she doesn't need a man, and blah blah blah. So I do my best to get time with my kids at every measure, but it's really hard. So I was trying to go back to her, and she just made me move all of her stuff, and then she just made me homeless, like literally kicked me out, and all I had was a car. And so, like, okay, I'm living in the car, and in Seattle with being a stay-at-home dad, and then only working part-time hours at Amazon, you're not able to really save up a whole lot, man. That money goes away pretty fast. So, the economy the way it is, you needing like almost $3,000 to get a down payment of first last month. The way that the scamdemic was going, my sister and my family, they were terrified of the bioweapon. They thought I was an asymptomatic spreader. So I wasn't allowed in the house. And
Wow.
so I stayed homeless for about 18 months until that situation changed. And I,
Wow.
I, I don't think it. I mean, I lost 2 jobs too with the mask because they like put on the mask. I'm like, no, I'm not putting on the mask. I'm not sick. And they're like, well, you're fired. I'm like, well, you're gonna fire a homeless man? I'm like, okay,
Wow.
okay. So the the no f's given to society has is reciprocated because I don't have any f's about like what I should be doing. I mean, it doesn't. It's
Mhm.
not an excuse like, oh, I've got all these problems to deal with. Those are excuses that slaves make because they want to remain slaves. And
Yeah.
that's just how That's how I start looking at it now. Because I know they want to kill me. I know they want to kill my family. I know they want to extract. I'm gonna quote the general. The vital essences of our bodies. The general from Doctor Strangelove. The
Mhm.
vital essences of our bodies. They're trying to extract that and weaponize that. And I mean, that's not a kooky statement anymore. We finally
Yeah.
gotten to the truth. It's finally been said loud enough to where we can all have that good grand discussion about energy vampires and politicians to the point where we're not slaves. You
Mm.
know, you know, now is the perfect time because we're not going to get another chance.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, you mentioned
So,
something there about like what had happened to you as a father, how your ex, I don't need a man, I could raise a child on my own. This is a topic actually when it comes to family law courts, the breakup of the American family, what the system is doing to fathers, how they are extremely prejudiced, how, basically 90% of fathers don't get custody of their own children. I mean, these are topics
dude,
we've explored. And this seems to be, when we talk about things like the COVID scandemic, when we talk about the authoritarian behavior, one thing that we don't fail to see on Blood Money is all these things are tied together, right? Making children fatherless, making the government the father that, replaces the real father, right? The courts being so prejudiced against fathers, the courts basically, you could walk in there with all the truths in the world as a father and you could still lose your children, right?
I I
People
was
don't talk about this topic enough.
no, they don't. I mean, I was representing myself per se in family court, filed all the paperwork, had a trial. She had like this free lawyer. All she did was she claimed that she was abused, right? I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
well, where are the
Yeah.
charges? Where's the arrest record? There is none
Yeah.
because it never happened. And so she got this free attorney, and I'm like, fine, I'm going to beat this. I was the primary
Which, by the
parent.
way, I have to interrupt you there real quick because I've noticed, and this is based upon intensive studies on all the legal systems in the West. That's what normally happens. If a female claims that she's abused, she gets all kinds of free help. As a man, you get nothing. Like when you look
Yeah,
at the institutions that protect men's rights versus women's rights, there literally is none for men. And
zero.
there's hundreds for women. There's all kinds of financial support. All a female has to do is lie. And by the way, that is the
Yep.
number one tool that is called the silver bullet in divorce, where all of a sudden, an individual like yourself who's never even had a phone call about being abusive, has never even been accused of being abusive, all of a sudden is made to be abusive in family law courts, which, by the way, is highly unlawful, by the way. That's a big thing that nobody talks about, where you can't make criminal accusations and have him stand up in a civil court, which is exactly what's happening in these
Right.
family law
It's
courts. Because
what she
if
did.
you're
Yeah.
abusive, yeah, they basically say you're abusive with no criminal charges forever. Now you don't see your kids, you're separated from your kids, even though there's no criminal charge, no accusation except for the false accusation by that former significant other
Yep.
that uses it basically to alienate you from your children.
Oh, and yeah. So I mean, all she had to do is, I mean, I had the court in my hand, as
Mm-hmm.
best I could. I knew it was an uphill battle. All she had to do was say that I was an Alex Jones listener, and I watched everything just crush. He was his attitude changed. He addressed me instead of Tim. He called me Mr. Lassley from there on out. It was like, because he could see. So I had my other daughter in a different relationship with me, like in a lot of these court filings. He probably just saw me, going back and forth. And as a stay-at-home dad, my ex was making more, going back to work or maternity thing. So it was just better off. Like the way the daycare was structured, I didn't want another person in the raising my child. The economy was only at $16 an hour for people just coming in and out of work. So it just made better sense for me to stay at home for a while, And so I had my daughter in court, and everything seemed to be fine. I was basically like the stand-up citizen, right? Not backing down, going to save my kids in court, representing myself, filing all the paperwork, earnest. She says Alex Jones, and like literally everything went away. And this was in 2014, and it was just like, wait, what just happened? And she said, how'd she say it? I was always under duress and stressed out because he was an Alex Jones listener, and he changed our diet, and he wouldn't let us have certain things. And so, like, yeah, I filtered the water. I didn't put GMO stuff on the table. Wow, because you were pregnant, woman. There was all these other underlying circumstances that she just didn't include. The judge didn't care. So I went from primary parent to I got my kids 2 days every other weekend, and and I got to pay like $500 a month per kid, right? And it's like, I like, okay, but now it's like, what do you do with that? What do you do with this? I mean, it's just like they kidnapped my kids,
Yeah.
And so there's nothing else. I mean, you don't know. I mean, I know that there's no advocacy for me. A lot of people say, "Well, that's illegal. And she can't do that." I'm like, are you kidding me? The court said it was just like, yeah. And she was a drug addict too, which was like the topper of toppers. Sorry, she had a substance abuse problem. So like you're saying, the courts are definitely weaponized. They will make every effort for that female that wants to lie and milk the system for everything it's got. Because she said I was an abusive person with no standing. I mean, no charges, never been arrested, barely been in any fights, And I mean, it's just like I'm 5'3". It's like, what I'm just gonna walk around and kick people. So it didn't make any sense at all. But the fact that it was the right wing, the MIRAC reports were already out. The Missouri MIRAC reports, those were already out. The Ron Paul things and stuff. So, but it wasn't like that fervorous Trump hatred, but that stuff that they were talking about was already in the permafrost of the system. So I might as well have been wearing an Alex Jones t-shirt, but I had the same result.
Wow. I mean, that's straight up discrimination. That's straight up bias. That's straight up lack of due process, where they're using what you're consuming as news entertainment against you. But it's part of the overall agenda, isn't it? I mean, all these things are tied together. And our country is in shambles right now. It's like, how do we compete with other countries, like Russia, frankly, like Saudi Arabia, other countries that have family values, that value men and women within their society? This is what we're dealing with right now, where third wave feminism, they talk about equality and stuff. No, like what you're talking about is you are essentially an oppressed individual. You are somebody that doesn't have legal rights. You are a victim, right? If you are looking at this from a bird's eye view, not in the eyes of the courts, not in the eyes of these corrupt politicians, but you are a victim, right? Because you are now being treated lesser than a female, lesser rights. And by the way, I know a lot about this in terms of my family history. We came from the Ottoman Empire. We happen to be Armenian Christians. That we have in the Ottoman Empire, we had 2/3 the right of the regular Islamic person, meaning we had no rights, meaning our children could be raped, murdered, and there would be no repercussions through the courts. That's what it means to be 2/3 citizen. And what you're telling me is that you are a 2/3 citizen in the eyes of this court, right? So how do we compete with other countries that value the men and fathers in their society, that are building families, that are building strong futures? Or do we really not stand a chance when it comes to that world?
Oh, we most certainly do, but we have to get it out of our minds that we've lost. We have to get it in our minds that we're winning, and like make every day about winning instead of enduring the loss that we've already endured. I mean, I could soak in the pool of loss forever in the day, and I'm not getting anything out of it. And my culture, my friends, everybody's falling to the wayside. Or I can just like get out and be either a leader or an example, like every single one of us. Small gestures, large gestures. It's about breaking that conditioning that it's none of my business, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's where a lot of people are. Is it's none of my business. Well, apparently it is a lot of our business. Whether we was surprised. And so
Mm-hmm.
I think I've been teasing this idea in my head like a sticky marble about a million town march. I think it'd
Mm-hmm.
be an interesting idea to kind of not kind of putting people in harm's way, because I'm not trying to advocate for any type of violence, but I don't want people to be put in harm's way by trying to go to a centralized event where everybody's license plates are scanned, their phones are scanned, and stuff like that. We don't have to go and fight this stupid, silly war that they want us to fight. All we have to do is go outside and make friends with our neighbors and talk real talk and be real with them and express what's really going on and endure that whether it's an hour of arguing about whether or not Jimmy Kimmel's real, or this and that. We have to actually stay focused on real topics until they're solved. Because I mean, day in, day out, we constantly just go through this hammering of psyop, but we don't really have this solutionary based mindset. And so I think wouldn't be great. We could just go out and like cookouts and bullhorns for everybody. Be friends with our neighbors, reach out, like the chalk walk thing. I mean, that was
Mm-hmm.
so freaking fun to go out. We like 15 people, 10 people, a lot of sidewalk chalk, and just start writing things that about, like hashtags, things that Google this. We were putting them everywhere. Absolutely anywhere where there was surface area, we just effed it all up. I mean, I know people it's kind of a leftist thing to do to be an activist, but you have to get their attention at this point in time, because
Mm-hmm.
the fluoride stare is powerful. The distractions from the phone is powerful, and so they're constantly addicted to that signal, and we need to be more than noise. We need to override that. So that's how I think we can do it with a million town march, where people just go out and talk to one another and show
Mm-hmm.
a solidarity where the feds can't f you up. Make friends with your sheriff. Show your sheriff that you're peaceful, that you're not Antifa. That's the one thing that you differentiate yourself from the others, because if you want this beautiful experiment to continue, it has to be a nonviolent renaissance of freedom, because they
Mm-hmm.
want you to be violent, and they have every protocol ready for that violent snap. It will happen. They've got Rex 84. They have plans to shut your cities down in 3 minutes by freeways, and then they start rounding up patriots and stuff if the snap happens. And we don't have to do it.
Yeah.
We
Yeah.
don't. I mean, because everybody's pissed off about January 6th and
Mm-hmm.
Enrique and Joe Biggs and Owen Schroyer, and that's what they really want to do. This is like, well, if that's not enough, we're going to throw Trump in jail.
Mm-hmm.
Then what? And we don't really have to go to the point where we feed that monster. We can start building a culture away from them and make them irrelevant.
Mm-hmm.
We can
I
innovate
mean,
out of that.
my final question is the Renaissance coming? You talked about a Renaissance. Is an American Renaissance coming? Is a freedom Renaissance coming?
If we want it to happen, yes, absolutely.
I
We're
mean, do you
Americans.
think it's coming when you look at the tea leaves and stuff out there? What do you think is what do you think the future holds?
God tells me to not quit. Whether I can't see my black pill side says I don't know, but my red pilled side says if we can do it the right way, absolutely it will happen. But it has to be done the right way, or it won't happen. It's kind of like that one slot. We've got that one moment in time, and I think it's now. Yes, I think it can be done, and it
Mm-hmm.
will happen. You know, um,
Okay.
yeah, it will happen.
Yeah. And I mean, if
Yeah,
if I could throw my 2 cents in here, I think the way to do that is through parallel systems. If you build a pond on one side and it's a nice clean pond, and then people are swimming in sewage on the other side, people that are swimming in sewage are eventually going to want to come to the clean pond. I think it's as simple as that.
absolutely. And we have to be willing. We have to open arms for the people to come out of that sewage. I mean, I know it's really hard, but they've been in sewage. So
Mm.
we have to be just humble for a while and be good Christians and to let these people heal. I mean, detox camps are what's needed in America, not not what we're doing. Not ingesting all these heavy metals. We have supermarkets with heavy metals on every shelf. I mean, there's so many things that are keeping Americans in this state of mind, and so I mean, they're hostages when you look at it. They're 21st century hostages, and so we have to build a culture around that to heal, or it's we're just hating ourselves and infighting with one another until they round us up.
Exactly. Tim, is there anything we didn't touch upon that you'd like to mention in closing?
The Earth is not flat, and chemtrails are real. The United Nations has to go. That is the big distraction. Everything else is a distraction. It's the UN. That's the unifying message. If we could get the UN out of it, all of our politicians wouldn't have treaties, and they wouldn't act with diplomatic immunity, would they?
Wow. Amazing, brother. Tim, I appreciate it so much, man. I appreciate the work that you're doing. Such an incredible story, brother, that, I mean, if there's ever a David and Goliath story, it's your story. If there's ever a story that tells people that the power is in their hands and they could actually change what's happening, I mean, it's your story. You just have to be bold enough and courageous enough to go out there and do this.
You do, and mean it. I mean, it comes from the heart. And once you get there, I mean, it's an addictive substance. That feeling from the heart, it's an addictive substance. You'll go back. So keep at it until it triggers. It's like climbing Mount Everest. It really is. I can't really describe it any other way.
Yeah. Tim, this has been awesome, man. Thank you so much for coming on to the Blood Money podcast. And for the viewers out there, thank you so much for joining us. Please make sure you check out AmericaHappens.com, where we have all of our episodes posted, a link to our Rumble channel, including our show Daily Devotions, which happens every morning. It's a daily prayer series. We also do Blood Money with yours truly, Conspiracy Truths with Mindy Robinson, our HN News live show every Tuesdays and Thursdays at 2 p.m. Pacific with Corinne Clifford coming to us from Washington, D.C., giving us all the latest news of what's happening. So thank you so much for joining us on this episode of Blood Money. I will see you on the next episode. Take care. Truth in media is not free. If the corrupt corporations run the media, then all we get is a pile of lies. So please support truth in the media by donating to AmericaHappens.com by simply going to AmericaHappens.com, clicking on the support tab, and entering a generous donation. Thank you so much.